Hello, everyone. This is Father Michael Lilly with the Orthodox Experience. I'm doing a little question and answer today. I received a question from Andrew who inquired about whether hell, the afterlife, is a state of being, or is it more like what he suggests is a Western notion of this, the lake of fire, that we find in the book of Revelations. So he asked me to do a more in-depth answer on what the Orthodox teaching is on this subject. And the quick answer is to say yes, both are true. And I want to preface this by saying that the afterlife is a mystery. There's not any clear indication in Scripture other than the parable of the rich man and Lazarus about what the afterlife is, though Christ does speak about weeping and gnashing, eternal fire, torment. We find these terminologies in the New Testament often. But how did we get to the teachings and the understanding of what hell is, the experience of it? Is it a state of being? Is it an actual place? What is it exactly? I'll start by referencing a couple of works. One is a Metropolitan Hilarion Alfeev's book on the mystery of faith. It's a small catechetical book that he published many years ago. And in that, he gives us this look into it. Says, why does God condemn people to eternal damnation? How can the image of God, the judge, be reconciled with the New Testament message of God as love? St. Isaac the Syrian answers these questions in the following way. There is no person who would be deprived of God's love, and there is no place which would be devoid of it. Everyone who deliberately chooses evil instead of good deprives himself of God's mercy. The very same divine love, which is a source of bliss and consolation for the righteous in paradise, becomes a source of torment for sinners, as they cannot participate in it, and they are outside of it. It is therefore not God who mercilessly prepares torments for a person, but rather the person himself who chooses evil and then suffers from its consequences. There are people who deliberately refuse to follow the way of love, who do evil and harm to their neighbors. These are the ones who will be unable to reconcile themselves with the supreme love when they encounter it face to face. Someone who is outside of love during his earthly life will not find a way to be inside it when it departs from the body. He will find himself in the valley of the shadow of death, the darkness, the land of forgetfulness, in which the Psalms speak. Jesus calls this place, or rather this condition of the soul after death, the outer darkness and the hell of fire. So here, Metropolitan Hilarion is certainly saying that hell, as we come to know it in the afterlife, is a state of being. It's a coming into contact with the supreme being who is all love, and knowing that we have rejected that love, that we've turned away from good and done evil, and that the presence of God will burn us up, that we'll be suffering and discontent for this. So from this teaching of from Metropolitan Hilarion, we see that it is a state of being. But that doesn't really answer how we got to this concept of the terminology, such as in Revelations, a lake of fire, eternal torment, this physical place of hell. So for that, we need a little bit of a historical background on that. And I'm going to refer to this book called Patristic Theology. It's edited by Father John Anthony McGuckin. It's the Westminster Book to Patristic Theology. And here there's a really wonderful article on hell itself by R.H. Charles. It's a critical history. And then also by G.L. Prestige. It's regarding Hades and the Greek Fathers. So in here it says, and please forgive me, this is a little long, but there's such good information here. It says the early Christian concept of hell combines two ideas from the New Testament, connotated by the terms of Hades and Gehenna. Hades was synonymous in the Hellenistic religion with the realm of the dead, but it was also a common Septuagintal translation of the biblical term Sheol. In the Hellenistic sense, Hades was a sad realm of fading shadows. The concept of the resurrection and the afterlife not being generally extensive until much later. The falling into Hades was often synonymous for being mortally sick, and it appears often in the Psalms that pray for a release from the jaws of death or the pit of the earth. Gehenna was originally the valley of Hinnom, adjacent to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Excuse me. It had once been the site of human sacrifices to the god of Moloch and was regarded as a place of abomination, a site where God's anger would fall. The valley was later used as a refuge dump for Jerusalem. Its permanently stinking fires were evoked by Jesus when he too referred to it as a sign of God's judgment and definitive rejection of evil. And so began the long association of hell as a fiery place of torment. This combination of ideas of judgment of souls with an afterlife had not been widespread in the Hellenistic religion, but was well known in Egyptian mythology and was increasingly a part of Jewish and early Christian experience in the apocalyptic era. When ideas of the resurrection and afterlife as a reward or punishment came more to the fore. Gehenna soon was associated with the more graphic symbols of Jewish and early Christian apocalyptic judgment, such as the fiery abyss, the lake of fire found in the book of Revelations. An early Christian imagination filled in the details of the topography of hell accordingly. The old ambivalence between Hades as a place where all human life was destined to go, and Gehenna as a place of the punishment of the wicked was replaced, in one sense, by a new Christian vision of an afterlife as sharply discriminating matter of judgment. The passage of the elect to heaven and the wicked to hell. But the ambivalence continued in another sense, in that manner in which there remained confusion in the wider patristic tradition about whether the souls of the just went to paradise after death or had to linger in Hades until the general resurrection on the last day. St. Irenaeus of Lyons was very important on this matter. He regarded the Gnostic belief that the souls of the righteous could go straight to heaven as not corresponding to the pattern revealed by Jesus. That he lived on earth, then he descended into the house of Hades for 3 days, and then only then rose to heavenly glory. St. Irenaeus thought that the elect would rest in Hades until the day of the resurrection, when they would finally rise to glory. Thus, part of the Hades was reserved for the consolation of the just, while another part contained the wicked who were punished for their crimes. This image is reflected in the parable again of the rich man and Lazarus, where both die or taken by the angels into the next life, and they are both experiencing something completely different, though they are very much aware, a conscience, and very much having a feeling of either of both of bliss or of torment. Others, strongly held views in the early church maintained that souls of martyrs and the elect could pass straight to paradise, and thus Hades only contained penitent sinners and the wicked. In the late 2nd century, Hippolytus filled the gap by writing one of the first travel guides to the afterlife. Here the righteous are taken by angels by the right gate to the light-filled place in Hades called Abraham's bosom, while the wicked are taken in by the left gate to the dark and smoky place from which they can make out the fiery lake of Gehenna, which is currently unoccupied, but which awaits them in future torment. Tertullian believed that the general occupation of Hades was the fate of the church, with the sole exception of the martyrs, who could bypass Hades and go straight to heaven as a result of their extraordinary virtue. He saw the time of the just in Hades as a period of post-death purification. Before him, St. Justin, the martyr, also held strongly maintained views that the punishment of fire was eternal and had been prepared for demons, but would now be delayed in its execution so that the souls of the wicked humans could be included on the last day. So we see this in the book of Revelations, in the Apocalypse, that the devil, the Satan, these demons would be thrown into the lake of fire. And St. Justin is saying that this sentence would be delayed until the final resurrection, until the final judgment, so that the humans who followed in their footsteps would be condemned to the same punishment. Conversely, Origen, a controversial figure here, he had a different view. His theory of the apokatastasis, when all souls will one day be restored to communion with God, created much controversy in the later church, and as a result of it, there was a hardening of patristic speculation on salvation and judgment after the 3rd century. He held that there would be no eternal torment, that everybody would be saved and inherit the kingdom of God one day. And this was later to be brought as a heresy in the church at the 5th Ecumenical Council. After Origen, most Christian teaching imagined that the descent to Hades as part of Christ's definitive liberation of souls imprisoned there, so that the just would thereafter enter heaven to be with the Lord, as Paul expressed it. St. Gregory the Great, agreed with this later idea and popularized it in the Latin Church after him. Most of the Latin fathers after the 4th century believed that the punishment of the damned fell upon them immediately after death. It was an idea that St. Gregory the Great authoritatively affirmed. He and St. Augustine were largely responsible for the later common teaching that the prayers of the living were of no avail in saving a soul once it had fallen into hell. So you can see in the Western Church, and here already we've got two ideas. That one, that the people can go straight to hell as their punishment, or that they go into Hades and their torments purify them. This purgatorial, this idea of purgatory, and that only through that purification they could later get to heaven. So these two concepts are alive in the Western Church. However, in the Eastern Church, in the Orthodox Church, we never quite made up our mind about this. While it's generally held to the view that we see this in the kneeling prayers on the day of Pentecost. We specifically call God in the name of the whole church to alleviate the sorrows of the lost souls. With the development of the doctrine of purgatory, the West became ever more specific about the state in the afterlife, where in the Eastern Orthodox Church there's more ambiguity. Here it was thought that the souls just pass through various regions and levels of instruction by angels after death, for which various liturgies and memorial services were assigned to cover the first 40 days. Several of the church's prayers for the dead evoke a state of green pasture and refreshment, reminiscent of the repose of the righteous in Hades, but more and more in the belief in the transition to paradise became standard, as in the West. So a lot of good info there, but to sum that up, the concept of the physical lake of fire, an eternal torment, comes from the actual idea in the early church that they inherited from Jewish concept of this place of this burning, the stink that this known as Gehenna, that was out by where human sacrifices and where God would pass judgment upon. This concept came from our human imaginations of what it would be to be in hell. But when we look at later ideas of what hell is, such as St. Isaac the Syrian, as I read from Metropolitan Hilarion Alfeev's book, that truly hell is going to be a condemnation of our own selves by the rejection of the love of God and being in His presence, which would lead us to feeling in a place of fire and torment. So it is a place, a state of being. We can see that, but we also know that the next life, that hell, heaven, that it is a mystery, and that we cannot be too detailed because God has not revealed to us in full detail about what that will look like, what it will be, other than that there will be a hell that is eternal for those that reject Him, and that there will be a heaven, a paradise for those that accept Him. And when we come face to face, we'll rejoice by being in the presence of the Lord. I hope that helps a little bit, bring some light and some perspective on these understandings that somewhat differ between Orthodox and maybe even Catholic, Protestant views of heaven and hell, and the process it takes to get there once we leave our bodies, our souls leave our bodies here in this world. So God bless you. If you would like to have any further questions answered on this blog, please, in the box below, you can send me your questions. I'll read them, I'll look at them, and I'll be happy to make a response to the best of my ability to shed some light and more perspective on the Orthodox understanding of any faith-based questions that you have. So God bless you all. Please remember to subscribe to this channel and to go ahead and share this information with those who think that would find it edifying and beneficial. Thank you.